Hey, what's going on guys, Khraze here, back into Marvel's Avengers, and today we have some really exciting news. Update 1.30, the all-awaited biggest update so far, has been released and it should be available right as we speak. It's a 10GB plus update, by the way, so you will need a little bit of internet speed and some space to actually download it, but it finally brings all of those changes that we've been looking for. So if you have problems with the infinite loading screen, with the matchmaking, missing units and outfits, as well as the rewards not being properly scaled, all of that and more is actually included in this update. But what's most important is that we finally get the first piece of endgame content, which are these mega hives. There's a brand new missions associated with it, but there's also the mega hive itself, which we're gonna talk about all of that in this video. So let's jump right into it, and as always, a thumbs up on this would also be super appreciated. Now, starting with the new content, if you head over into your objectives menu under missions, you will notice that there is a new challenge track for the Gauntlet of Heroes, which is basically the new mega hive that has just been added, and it's actually a multi-part sequence that you will have to complete that will get increasingly more challenging. If you don't know what mega hives are, they are basically the same versions of the hives that we already have, though there's a gimmick in it that kind of changes things around. So if you go into it and one of your heroes gets downed, you're going to automatically switch to your next hero in your party, and you will continue until nobody is left in your party to continue. But the thing about this is that it kind of starts slow, it kind of starts a little bit more easy, and then eventually I think that in the last couple of them, the Gauntlet of Heroes is going to be way more challenging and way more difficult. As far as the rewards go, I think that these are going to get increasingly better as you progress through it, because in the early stages they don't seem to be that great outside of the guaranteed legendary that you get from the track itself. So it remains to be seen, but in the meantime we do have quite a number of fixes over here that I'm gonna cover because they are quite significant. So there's a number of fixes for progression and infinite loading screens, especially not being able to start your main campaign after first playing the Avengers initiative. And on top of this, there's also various other infinite loading screen bugs that were affecting certain types of missions, like for example the light that failed or to stand alone. I'm pretty sure that these were the most notorious ones. There's also various other bug fixes to progression that were kind of hindering it altogether, especially doing the one called interrogation anxiety, which I'm pretty sure is the most common for most of the people out there, because this was the one that most people got stuck on when this bug would be happening. Again, there are going to be a ton of fixes in these patch notes. I think that even the ones on the website don't actually contain the full 7+ pages of over 1,000 changes, but these are the ones that are most important, and even from those I actually extracted the ones that are even more important and more common. And this brings us basically to the matchmaking changes and fixes. One of the first for the matchmaking is that the cooldown after leaving a strike team before you can matchmake again has been reduced from 30 seconds all the way down to 4 seconds, so now you can queue up much faster. But matchmaking now stays enabled during mission launch countdown to give more time for players to join, and there's various other fixes for the quick match that has been broken for over 2 weeks. This includes the launch with any hero quick match failing when 2 quick match players joined another match simultaneously, losing quick match status when a player failed to join another match, and bugs where leaving existing strike teams would prevent the next quick match from working altogether. In terms of UI and animations, there have been a number of animations that actually have been addressed, including the ones that are more janky, a lot of clipping issues. We even have some animations that didn't work altogether or being out of sync, especially for doing takedowns with the Hulk. That was also addressed in this update. But I do want to talk about some UI changes that are actually very important, and I want to start things off with the fact that we finally have a motion blur slider that you can go in and check out in the camera settings right here at the bottom. So now you can go ahead and choose anywhere from 0 to 10, with 0 of course meaning that the motion blur is turned off altogether, but you can also tune it down to maybe a lower setting, maybe like 1, 2, up to 5, so that it's not that noticeable. You can also see now the progress when being revived, so if you die in combat and a teammate comes in and revives you, you should be able to see the progress bar being shown over there too, not just when you're doing the reviving yourself. So that is actually quite a nice quality of life improvement. For the combat is where it's actually more significant, so let's cover combat, gear, challenges and rewards. So there's going to be a huge list of changes for the combat. combat, but the most important are as follows. So Crystal Dynamics addressed the infinite enemy spawn during control point events, like for example the ones in Enter the Avengers, or even in some of the hive rooms. They would basically constantly spawn after finishing that control point. It seems that this was also kind of like a farming method that you can go in and just farm a ton of enemies and a ton of items. While this should be fully addressed, though I'm pretty sure that there's a couple of instances that they have still missed. But on the other hand, they also addressed a really annoying bug where enemies wouldn't spawn at all, especially during defend events, where you would actually have to get closer to these defender NPCs so that that objective would actually start. So I'm really glad, because this was really annoying. There's other bugs, including for certain encounters that would randomly spawn way too many of the stronger enemy types, so now you shouldn't see that anymore. And there's other various fixes to hero abilities and mechanics, like especially Kamala Khan getting stuck with her hands in front of her, and a ton of others that would cause issues with the abilities being casted, or being casted too soon or too late, and with their animations too. Again, you can go ahead and check them out in the links down below. What's most important for the combat is that we finally get some fine-tunes for many of the enemies that were a little bit too aggressive, especially on the higher difficulties. This is mainly for adaptoids, so their laser attacks are easier to avoid right now, and they also made it so that they trigger a much smaller hit reaction from your heroes if they get hit by it. And they also made assault adaptoids to be less aggressive under certain conditions, like for example when multiple of them spawn at the same time, when under fire shield effect, or when just throwing fireballs. And speaking of throwing fireballs, the visuals for these have been updated so that they are much easier to notice in combat. Now let's talk about gear, challenges and rewards, as this is something that you're looking forward to. And I want to start things off with the fabrication machine. Yes, I can fully confirm that this has been in fact fully been addressed. In fact, I have gathered a ton of these patterns, both, well, rares as well as a bunch of epics, and I can confirm that all of them were giving me something. I got a ton of outfits from them, but more important, if I didn't get outfits, I did get those units on top of them. Also, since we are on the subject of units, you might want to know that the bug that caused them to disappear if you exceeded 32,000 units, yeah, that has been addressed, but for people who kind of already had the bug happening, you kind of still have to go ahead and notify the support. This is the case for me. I basically lost about 35,000 units. They still haven't been given back to me, so what I did is I went ahead and I created another support ticket. So I'm gonna leave some links down below that you can follow, so you should definitely go ahead and do that as well, since also the patch notes kind of tell you the same thing. But in the meantime, they added a cap of 65,000 units to ensure that they don't disappear in the future. Though now the question is, well, what happens if you kind of want to bank on them in case you want to buy some really cool outfits later down the line? You're kind of forced into spending a few of these and never exceeding 65,000 units, which is kind of a bummer, so I hope that's gonna get fixed soon. They also refunded missing campaign outfits for users who kind of had them reverted into the locked state following like just completing the main campaign, so you should be able to see this, but the iconic outfits may still be missing or being locked for a number of players, and they are still investigating this issue. Luckily enough, all of mine were refunded, but I am seeing quite a number of players that still have this issue to this date. Hopefully it's gonna get addressed in another hotfix patch sometimes in the near future. They've also increased gear cap. This is one of the most important of them all, because, well, this is going to make it easier for you to actually get in some of the items. So they increased the power level caps for the threat sectors, drop zones and hives to 130, which should ensure that you should also get 130 plus gear dropping from there. Especially from the drop zones, these usually would reward 120, which made it difficult to specifically farm for ISOs, aka the minor artifacts. So this in theory should mean that you can go ahead and finally refarm drop zones again, since they will drop the appropriate gear. Now, speaking of increased power levels and stats, yes, finally exotic gear has been fine-tuned, so now they have the best possible stats compared to any other gear below it, even including the legendaries. So now if you get exotic gear, you should be able to see that it's going to have appropriate stats as well as perks. And by the way, on the same subject, it seems that the power level 1 item that will get rewarded from various missions has partly been addressed, though not entirely. Now, you don't get level 1 greens anymore, but you can still get level 1s, though this time around the legendaries, so the level 1 portion of it still still hasn't been fully addressed and it can still occur to some players, but for the most part it should only occur on a very rare occasion. Personally, I never saw it occurring, so I think that some people are just blessed while others, well, they are just cursed to have many of these bugs. But there's other fixes in there that I'm gonna leave you guys at it. Also a few of them that haven't been fixed so far. So for example, the bug with certain heroes missing skill points or on the same page having too many, while these haven't yet fully been addressed and are still being looked into. It seems that the game had a ton of bugs, but actually this update 1.30 fixed a lot more than I thought in the first place. Way better than I expected. It could have caused way more issues, but so far it seems that stability wise and fixes wise it's a pretty damn good patch. Let me know down below what other issues you might be encountering in the new update, and we're gonna of course keep you guys posted if anything changes in the meantime with hot fixes and whatnot. As always, if you enjoyed this video at any point, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.